I'm Stephen Mirsky. I'm with Department of Ag here in Beltsville, Maryland at the Sustainable Ag Systems Lab. And I'm standing in one of our long-term cropping systems experiments where we're looking at various different precision and sustainable agricultural practices to optimize our food systems and make them more resilient, especially in the face of changing climates. What I'm here to talk about today is some of the technology that we're developing around mapping crops, cover crops, and weeds. We think it's really important to map the spatial variability of our crops and our weeds and our cover crops because all of farming is very spatially variable. You have wet spots like you see out here in this wheat field where we have very poor performance of a wheat crop, and then you can see other areas that are more weedy than others. The same thing goes for our cover crops. These are biological tools. They respond to their environment, so they're going to be high and low performance throughout a field. It's particularly important for cover crops and weeds, which are not receiving uniform applications of fertility and are not going out there at uniform seeding rates, for example, like our cash crops. So they're going to be spatially variable in the field. Weeds from varying populations across the field, and cover crops because of the variability in drainage and nutrients that might be out in a field. Using low-cost camera systems like this attached to our tractor allows us to map both the species in real time, but also these stereo cameras allow us to get a depth map, which we can correlate well to biomass. So now we can provide researchers and growers with real-time maps of their species and their biomass. And this is really powerful because this allows us to understand, one, when we're setting up research experiments, how does the extent of which our different experimental treatments impact these plants across large areas? We know that weeds are really spatially variable. So when we see patches of weeds, is that the effect of our treatment? Or is that a real response? Or is that the lack of weeds in the field? So being able to track those differences is really powerful because we can now go across an entire plot and map the performance of the weeds and track the consistency and suppression we're getting, for example, with any integrated weed management strategy. And the same thing applies, for example, like our cover crops. Cover crops are going into low and high nitrogen environments. They're going into areas where we have poor drainage and good drainage. So being able to track their performance and map that both by their species and their biomass, we can then come with subsequent management that is matched to that performance. So either increasing or lowering our herbicides or our fertilizer inputs into our cash crop to correspond with that cover crop performance.